second webinar in the Literacy Open Doors series. So my name is Dervla Ryan. I am the Literacy Development and Outreach Worker with the National Adult Literacy Agency, or NALA for short. I'm joined by two of my colleagues here, Leanne and Fergus, who are helping us on tech, and if you have any issues, just pop them in the chat today and they'll look after you. Some of us have already said hello in the chat box there, and if you share your name and organization, we can see who's in the room and who's here today. The webinar today, Literacy for Social Justice, the Building Blocks for Participation, is going to give you the opportunity to hear from two really amazing projects who've supported people to engage with our political systems and I suppose are fighting to influence decisions that impact their lives and their communities' lives. And I suppose the reason why NALA is so interested in this is because for us, literacy is the way to accessing a lot of rights and asserting your rights in society and engaging, I suppose, in everyday life. Yes, it is about reading, writing. And for us, it's also about numeracy and maths, but it's also about public speaking. It's also about being confident to go to your local TD and ask about the policies they're supporting and about influencing things that are happening and that are affecting you. So today you're going to hear from two different projects. The first is UISCE, who are the National Advocacy Service for people who use drugs in Ireland. And UISCE last year supported people with the lived and living experience of using drugs to speak at the Citizens Assembly on Drug Use. Some of you may have come across that during that time. They spoke very much about the importance of a human rights and evidence-based health-led approach to drug policy in Ireland. So you'll hear from Andy O'Hara, who is the coordinator of UISCE, Niall Hickey, who's an actor for change with the lived experience of drugs from UISCE, and Dan Jacob, actor for change with lived experience for drugs in UISCE too. After UISCE, we're going to hear from the Active Citizenship Voter Education project. And this is a course that's been developed by the Dublin Adult Learning Centre, I always mix those up, to support adults with unmet literacy needs or anyone who feels disengaged with politics around voting. And so we're going to hear from Fiona Connaughton O'Connor, who's the Voter Education Coordinator of the Dublin Adult Learning Centre, and then Michelle McGoldrick, who is the chairperson of the Balmain Community Group. And Michelle took the trainer course that Fiona did around the voter education and ran it herself with the Balmain Community Group. So thank you all to our speakers for coming today and all of our attendees for being here. And I'm going to hand over to UISCE now to kick us off.
Thanks, Dave. Look, you gave an introduction to who we are, so I might just add that really the organisation is set up to try and close the gap. We'll always say it's always around looking at who has the power and who doesn't. And we'll always say, look, who has the power? Policymakers, politicians, services, and who doesn't? Normally the people that the organisation is made up of. So people who are criminalised, discriminated against, and a lot of the time denied their human rights because of their drug use and their background, and they have very little power. So we're always trying to implement a process where we can close the gap with a view to actually changing things and improving things for people who use drugs, families, and the communities that we all come up under. So particular project we done that we're talking about today was really the Citizens Assembly. And I might just hand over to a couple of the lads and they might just come in and talk about some of their experience. So maybe Niall might actually tell us around what was the reasons as to why we done the project in the first place.
Well, the reason we done the project in the first place was because for me, using services most of my life, I never had a voice. I was never able to express things in the political or the policy making or anything like that. And I thought it was brilliant that we were able to bring people with lived and living experience and change the narrative, try to change the narrative on how we are, because we are people who know stuff. We're not stupid, you know. We're just people that had bad experiences through life. And
very good. And you might tell us a little bit maybe around the process, or the process by how we got to the point where we actually had a video.
So we went there, we do groups, we do outreach, we do all sorts of things, you know. And for this one, we said, right, we'll go out, we'll pick out a certain amount of pair, we'll bring them up, we'll do a broader issues group, get all their concerns and put it into what we are going to say with the Citizens Assembly. So that was the process. Yeah, bringing them all in, giving them a safe place to speak their mind and not hold back.
And then I know we're going to show the video in a few minutes, but can you tell us around? I know the video was quite hard hitting, and there's really good information in it. It's a really good structural analysis.
Yeah.
But maybe some of the people in the video felt that it wasn't appropriate for them to go on the stage and speak on the stage, but also be in the video. So can you tell us a bit around why we had to make a video and why we had to hide some people's identity?
So we had to make a video because that's what we had to do. We had to highlight the narrative, you know, and getting the people to highlight the narrative for you. People who use drugs are the best people to do it for you because they are the experts.
What was the reason why people were hiding their faces?
And they were hiding their faces because people that use drugs are stigmatized all their life. They probably don't realize it, but they are. So it makes a decision in their mind, well, I don't want to put my face up. I don't want people to see me. I don't want the people to hear my voice. So it wasn't hard to do. We done it.
And about the punishment, obviously people there can be blowback.
Yeah. So if you're on a clinic, if you're on any service and you're speaking out about that service, that could be comeback in that service.
And as well with the guards and two
anybody that has sort of a hold over somebody, you know, that's on their knees, you know, they should be helping us.
And you might just finish off by telling us, like, what do you think some of the impacts were? I know, say, the impacts of the video being shown, and I know you were over there engaging with some of the stuff, and you were talking about some of the comments made.
Yeah, it was very at the end of it was brilliant because we were all coming up and they were all asking us questions that we didn't say about, you know, and it was great to interact with people that were high in power, that had voices themselves that we could use going through their voices. Paul Reid, the chair, said the current approach is not working, you know, and we need a new way. And he's right. We do need a new way. 40 years of the same thing and it hasn't worked. So,
and you might just finish before we show the video, maybe tell people quickly, how did you feel to be part of something like this?
Oh Jesus, I loved it. It was very because when I was using clinics, I was a quiet meat type of fella. But when I joined ISCE, man, it was like a butterfly. I came out of my shell. But to talk to people that are in power and to have them listen to you is amazing. It's empowering. Really, really empowering.
Yeah. And look, we might, before Dave will go on to show the video, but that's just really powerful. People are so used to having no power, no voice, and being completely excluded that you have to have a really strong process on how you get there. So, but Dave might show the video, and just to let people know, it's pretty hard hitting. There's a lot of heavy stuff in it, but it's a really good structural analysis that nobody else can offer, only people who've been up through the system. Thanks, Nala. Thanks, Dave, sorry.
Realize the drugs, having to sell your body for drugs, negative reinforcement, children taken without consent, classed as the underbelly in society, being degraded as we have to pee in cups.
Wanting to return back to work, didn't get educated, unnoticed trauma, loss of a child and an ex-partner, a broken home, dysfunctional home and sexual assault.
I was in 14 different homes and I was abused in every single one of them. When I was 13, I was sold as a sex slave. I still haven't got counselling for that. And then they wonder why I hate guards, I hate authority, I hate anything like that. It's because the system failed me each time. All we are is a statistic, right?
They're homeless. Yes, they will be discriminated against. They will be looked down on. They will be tagged and judged by shopkeepers, by businessmen, by publicans, by policemen, by judges, and it's the whole 9 yards. Even when they go to the accident and emergency because something has happened on the street, because their life is totally removed from, I would say, 90% of our population. It's a very, very alienated existence. Works in an environment of deprivation where people have no money, they have no jobs. The area is a run-down, lower socio-economic area. It has a reputation. Those people know that they're viewed and judged. And so the whole idea of being able to get out of their head while making a few quid and selling a few drugs as well. But that's one area.
I was born into addiction. I was born withdrawing from heroin, so all of a sudden I was born into the stigma.
When I was in primary school, they hadn't got ADHD. They had a special school. They had a special class that were bold. And we were always told we are bold. We were always put at the back of the class.
We lived in the inner city in town where the drug epidemic was like full throttle.
And they put it down to, look, he's just a mess up, that's it. Put him down at the end of the class, give him the skill codes, social workers come, take it, bring you up to a room in the shops and doctor come, give you Valium, sedate you. On about 2:30, they wake you up and then they let you go home. And that'd be it then.
Yeah, I grew up in Finglas. We were classes, the lower class, and my father walked out on us when I was 6 years of age.
I know personally from my own experience, I've had both physical and mental health issues.
I'd like to help people who've been in my situation. Like, I never got the chance of treatment, I never got the chance of ban. I was always just into prison.
Then 10 years later, all this ADHD thing comes out, and I'm ADHD up to the hills.
I went to a counsellor in my school because they had seen that I had behavioural problems. So they gave me a counsellor. The counsellor was taken away from me because the funding wasn't there. I really engaged with this counsellor, and she got taken away from me. That was my first trauma.
The prison system, I was getting no drug counsellors, I was getting nothing. But yeah, I'm the person who's strung out with heroin, I'm the person who needs the help the most.
I became very accustomed to drugs, criminality from a very, very young age.
Because I know friends, because when I was a kid, they put me in the newspaper, youngest drug addict, and gave me a address, the whole lot. No one was allowed to play me, nobody was allowed near me door. The government put me name in the paper when I went to court. They put up a big write-up about me as well. And around my life, basically.
So at the age of 5 then we were taken into full-time care where we were put into a children's home.
Like, it's all through losses and griefs and stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Physical, mental, emotional and sexual abuse for a period of 10 years from numerous members of staff.
I started using Zimmerfane to forget about the problems that I should have dealt with at the time.
We know there is often a correlation between substances and people's mental health.
And then we ended up getting a house out in Clondalk. And they were building estates, but they weren't putting infrastructure into the estates. The first thing that they put in for infrastructure was a pub. My granddad's an alcoholic and my dad's an alcoholic, and they do terrible things through alcohol. I didn't want to do the drink thing, so I went down to drugs.
Left care at 16, full-blown addiction.
He got me a treatment centre, and I got dragged out of my house and put into Clover Hill, and never got the chance. That would have been, this was about 8-9 months ago now, that I could have been rehabilitated.
I ended up homeless because I was on drugs. Yeah. And my son was taken into care. So I ended up going out and shoplifting.
I had a criminal record from the age of 18, which, you know, kind of dictated the road I was going down. You know, it was kind of like as if I feel now that my road was marked out for me, and I had no choice in the matter because all these decisions were being made for me, and I was just going along with these decisions. And then I was also had that, you know, belief that this was all I deserved, that I deserved no more, that, you know, addiction was, this was my life, I had no choice in it. And that was reinforced on a daily basis through the guards and any interactions I would have with people out in the community. You know, obviously being a person that used drugs, you carry that stigma that comes with it.
It's horrible having a criminal record because it never leaves you. Every time we get stopped, it's straight away. They think, oh, you have drugs on you. They pull me trousers down. It's just a disgrace, like. Just throw them into cells and leave you there in your nip, freezing cold. No underwear on you. Boy, looking up your arse. Can you pull back your foreskins, everything? It's sickening stuff, like. The grading stuff they do to you. And a doctor should be there present when you're getting that done. And they make you do that without a doctor being there.
I'm fighting the system to try and get myself and my son at home. I'm literally coming down off drugs now at the moment, as in methadone.
So I'm still being stigmatised actually because I'm up in a hostel. I cause no trouble. Well, yeah, I can't get a house. I'm homeless since 2013.
We asked them about the house and they said, yeah, well, we're helping you, but it wasn't coming across because then they kept coming and saying back to us, no, social workers aren't saying you up there. And their excuse was, yeah, we went drug free, so because we went drug free, they wouldn't send us up there with the kids. So we said, well, we'll give you all lines and we'll get drug free. Give us the chance. No, we can't give us that chance.
It is, it breaks my heart every day, so much as to say that when I wake up in the morning, I wake up depressed. There was a stage in the hospital where I didn't want to move out of bed.
Someone, for example, with a dual diagnosis is put in a very unique position because it's used against you to say this is why we can't treat you, this is why we can't do X, Y and Z, and actually the issue gets worse.
I know a lot of people connected to drugs, yeah, a lot. Too many that have died from drugs and that have even in prison committed suicide. And they weren't down long sentences.
Well, no, a lot of my friends died. There's only three of my friends left.
Like, I don't want to be going to prison, back to prison again after so much changes that's had to come into my life and so much of a picture I can see serious changes in my life. And I want to put my head into the books. I want to do my 30 test.
Where I think I get stigmatised is on trains, on buses, walking down the street. They don't actually say it to you, but you can look at them and you can know what they're thinking, you know?
The system has completely failed me. Tussle, Dublin City Council, skills, jobs, the prison service, as in judges.
I didn't get any college, I didn't get any skill. I still haven't got any skill or anything like that. I still can't read or write, you know, and like, that's the way it is because the system failed me, the government failed me.
If you go back to the very start with me, it was the system that failed me, it was the policies that were in place failed me, and then I was punished for that.
Remember that, like everyone else, people who use drugs or have experience of substances have the potential to evolve just like the rest of humanity, just like every other person. And I don't think that because of a particular substance being vilified by authorities that we should never give someone another chance, or we should walk by people on the street, or we shouldn't help. I think that we need to actually, if we're going to say we have a health-led approach, we need to actually commit to that instead of it constantly being met with being criminalised, stigmatised and actually denied a lot of rights.
We need to be fixed by mental, by physically in there as well, damaged. We've damaged parts of our body.
So What you saw there was a really good structural analysis, and we keep talking about wanting to change the system. People in that video have information and analysis that nobody else has, and there are very people that are actually excluded from the majority decision making. So just remember, if we keep talking about changing the system, they're the people that we will not change the system without. And I might just pass over to Dan here, because Dan, there was a couple of follow-ons from that. I know from that the group decided to make a submission with 7 recommendations, and there's been progress on some of them. So Dan might talk around, say, the specific recommendation you were involved in.
Well, basically, at the Citizens Assembly, we made some recommendations. One of them was the decriminalization of drug use, which hits home for me because I was always stigmatized, always thought that I am inadequate and I am not able to be a normal person because of drug use.
And can you talk a little bit about, I know you were involved in, say, you made a video. What was the video about, and where did the video bring you?
Well, basically, we made a video about the decriminalization, and from there I went to a meeting in Lannister House where I took part in a meeting about the decrim, and it shows that we need to find a way around it.
And what about, was there any other, I know you spoke previously around some of the stuff that's happened, some of the actions that were taken recently in the media around the report.
Yeah, the government report, they made it
was about the recommendation for decrim that was in the report for the Oireachtas Committee. You were talking about that last week.
Right, yeah. Sorry. So the government made a recommendation to repeal the Drug Misuse Act, and we are currently still going on with it.
And you might just finish up, we're just coming up to 20 minutes, but can you talk a little bit about your experience or what it was like to be heard, or, you know, being part of something like this?
Being a person that used drugs, a person with lived experience, I never had the opportunity to address any of the persons in charge. I never had an input into anybody that was making, it was anybody in decision making for me. But since I've been with ISCA, it's changed my life. So it gives you the opportunity for change, and it gives you the opportunity to be listened to.
Very good. And look, I'll just finish up now and say, even with the video that we sent to the Sitting Assembly, it was always important we negotiated well with them, because originally they just wanted one member to go up on the panel discussion. But we had discussions with people saying sometimes we need to think of new ways of how we input into existing structures. So they agreed to have one member of the peers on the panel discussion. They agreed to show the video before the panel discussion. And they also agreed to have the peers have a session outside of the live session where they could mingle and talk directly with the people in the assembly. So we'll finish up there. Thanks.
Wow. I'd say everyone's speechless. Thank you so much, all three of you. And I think that point you make at the end, Andy, is really important, and something we try to promote in terms of this idea of making people comfortable and doing things in a literacy friendly way. Like sometimes, you know, as community and voluntary organizations, we forget we do have power. We can push back and say, look, the people we work with, the people with lived experience, are not going to write a submission and submit it online, and you won't get the best out of people that way. So can we do it another way? And I think that's really important for all of us to remember. It's a brilliant example of that. Thank you all so much. I'm sure there will be questions at the end. I think Fiona and Michelle will move on to you, and then we'll take all the questions together. But if anyone has a question in their head and they just want to get it down, feel free to pop it in the chat. and we'll get to it at the end. So thank you so much. Handing over then to Fiona and Michelle.
Thanks very much, Derv. Thanks very much, and thanks Andy, Niall, and Dan. I'm frantically scribbling notes here. Well, you introduced me. My name is Fiona. I work for an organisation called DALC, for the Dublin Adult Learning Centre. So we're primarily a literacy centre, but we took on this work around active citizenship voter education. And I just was struck when you said a few things there, Andy, Niall, and Dan, that you talked about power and in relation to the Citizens' Assembly, and a woman in the video said that you know, that there's policies that have failed people. So I suppose our course is really around, and it is linked to literacy, our course is really around helping people find their confidence and their voice and realise they do have more power to change their lives than they think, you know. But I just want to also make the point that voting is only one part of that, engaging with democracy, like the Citizens' Assembly, the deliberative democracy. But even like deliberative democracy and Citizens' Assembly are very structured, but even getting people in a room talking about, you know, issues that are important to them, even doing that is a really good act of literacy and engagement. Now I have a few slides there, and sometimes I think it kind of ruins the mood, if you know what I mean, to show slides. So if anyone wants slides afterwards, but just to give people a context, and also just to say my colleague Michelle McGoldrick, Michelle was one of the tutors who trained in our course to deliver it in our own setting. So I'm delighted Michelle is here as well to talk about the impact. Yeah, so just to say, as I said, we are based in the North Inner City, and we've been delivering classes in literacy for many years, but we took over the delivery of this course from another organisation called the Vincentian Partnership for Social Justice, who, gosh, for about 3 decades were delivering this in engaging people in politics and voting. So people who never registered to vote, never voted before, and felt totally disengaged from politics and voting, and they felt voting is for other people. And actually, I know the American election is coming up. The Vincentians were originally trained in Washington, actually, a social justice group in Washington called Network. So it's kind of filtered down to us now, and DALC have taken it over. So like, what I like about this course, actually, we've developed kind of 4 units, is that the same course can be delivered with community groups, literacy groups, the exact same course tutors do, and they learn to kind of experience it and deliver it then in their own setting. We're non-party political, like we give people the tools really to engage, but we crucially don't tell people who to vote for, or we don't influence people. But just to say, like, the way it's done, it's very workshopy, very discussion based, very kind of experiential, kind of Paulo Freire, very participative, because I think this is something I'm thinking about, that we are sort of in an information age. We don't have the space to think about what we think about the world and our issues and things that impact us. So yeah, just the course, like we cover things like a history of voting. So we talk about how people fought for the right to vote, the suffragettes, Black people in South Africa, and so on. We do practical things, which is a real literacy task around taking people through the steps to register to vote, knowing what your voting rights are. You know, so say if you are a migrant, that you can vote in the local elections, which people did in June. And also we role play how to vote, fill in a ballot paper, and kind of demystify that for people. Unit 2 then is about the issues. So this is kind of like your election issues. So we give people a chance to kind of articulate what their issues are, because often what happens, you know, when candidates come knocking on your door or come to your centre, people haven't thought about their issues. So we kind of give people the chance to do that. And also develop kind of critical thinking skills, like, you know, fact versus opinion, understanding the message, the spin, all of that. And then we look at, in Unit 3, the candidates. So we sort of workshop candidates, and I suppose clarifying your values first as a voter, what your values are, what your influences are, you know, and in life, and how that matches maybe to the candidate. Will they speak to you? Will they, I suppose, enact policies that would help you and your family and your communities and so on? So yeah, I mean, we've been really busy this year, but like a lot of the work we're doing, just to say, it's had a hugely positive impact. But anything we have really is kind of qualitative. Like a lot of people have said to me, you know, I suddenly feel I have a voice. No one asked me what I thought. I feel like I matter. I feel more included. And one person said they felt really proud going to the polling station, you know. And just to say as well, it's not that, I mean, there's massive, I suppose, apathy and cynicism out there. It's not like people do the course in 6 weeks, go, everything's great now, but it's a process of engagement. And that really is what literacy is. It's giving people the confidence to engage, because it's an ongoing thing. And I do think if we can get people to engage more in the long term, it will help everyone, really. So I mean, I have lots of resources, lots of slides and tips and things like that. We also have a website, vote.ie, just if anyone is there as a literacy tutor. So yeah, but I think like it's helpful maybe to hand over to Michelle. So just to say, Michelle, with a group of tutors back in, gosh, that was back in February, actually. You did the Train the Trainer course over 2 days with lots of different tutors and community education facilitators and that. So you've been doing amazing work, Michelle, and I think it's good to hand over to you now maybe and talk about the impact and your story and so on.
Thanks, Fiona. Yeah, so kind of just to give you a little bit of background of how I got involved in all of this. I'm chairperson of Balmain Community Group, and we kind of were trying to get vital facilities and services in Balmain since 2013. We like run family fun days, run summer projects, all that type of stuff, run like a volunteer-led youth club, trying to fill a service gap as much as we can. But in the meantime, we're really trying to get what our community needs, and that's our main objective. So when it came around to the local elections, obviously with the work that we're doing, we link in a lot with our elected representatives, and when they started canvassing, we realised, you know, the social housing blocks in Balmain are completely excluded. So people are actually excluded from participating fairly in the democratic process. And we felt this was a huge issue that needed to be addressed. So we decided to run like a social inclusion voting campaign where we gave canvassers access to the blocks. And then that was over 2 weekends. But then I heard about the Train the Trainer voter education program through AINTUS at the time it was. And I was like, oh, I'd love to do that. But like, I'm not a tutor. I've never done that like that before. But anyway, they got me on the course and I decided to roll it out then as part of our social inclusion voting campaign in Balmain. But like, people hear, you know, our voter education program, like, oh, I'm not doing that. That's nothing to do with me type thing. So we kind of put a spin on it that it was make your voice heard, make sure our community gets what it needs type thing, you know. So we got a few people to do the course anyway. And Fiona went through what we'd done on the course or whatever. But the feedback was really, really positive. And we only got 14 participants, but as we done it, we kind of highlighted what we were doing as well. And people were very much aware of the work that we do in the community anyway, trying to get resources and the stuff that we run. So we highlighted the course on Facebook and people were aware of what we were doing. But like, the feedback from the course was really positive. Like some people that done the course didn't vote before, some people did and thought they knew everything, but everybody learned something as they done the course. You know, people didn't realise the importance of the preference vote, how that actually worked. You know, they were saying how important it is to actually get to know your candidates and what their values are and what their priorities are, and make sure that they're pushing what's in line with your values and your priorities, you know, kind of stuff like that. But trying to see, am I forgetting on? Yeah, so the main objective of our social inclusion voting campaign is to ensure that the voices of people in our community are heard and that our community gets what it needs to thrive. And that's kind of the message that we're trying to get out, and the importance of actually getting involved, working with your elected representatives in the area to ensure that we get what we need. And then also, just as part of the feedback, like, I'm interested in the qualitative. I suppose it is important as well. Like, the voter turnout in the area went up 4%, you know, so that's important as well. But really what I'm interested in is the qualitative part. So, like, one of our participants decided to go back to college, and he's studying addiction studies because he wants to get more involved in the community, which is amazing. Another participant, like, was really struggling because she needed an extra car parking space. Her husband works and she has a child with additional needs and stuff like that. But through that, she got in touch with all the elected representatives, and now she has a car parking space, which is making a huge difference to her life, you know, little things like that. And then just even with the canvassers having access to the blocks, they're knocking on doors that they wouldn't normally be knocking on. Do you know what I mean? So, like, in one instance, one of the canvassers knocked on a door and a woman just burst out crying because someone had knocked on her door and asked her did she need support. So I think that qualitative piece, it was really impactful. And we're running it again now for the general elections, but it'd be really interesting now to see what the whole impact is. And I'm hoping to do further research on it. Oh yeah, as well as that, we put in for, so we linked in with, I'm housed with Clúid Housing.
I'm delighted you mentioned Clúid, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm really forgetting about that. But just something small.
No, it's not, it's big. Yeah. So
we linked in with Clúid Housing then, and we applied for HFA funding to roll it out in Clúid developments nationwide. So we just got word that, you know, that's going ahead. So we're working on like a 5-year strategy to roll that out as well. So yeah, hopefully it will have an impact, you know, but I do think it is really important that we do try and reach people, and, you know, people that don't necessarily vote and are a little bit disconnected from the whole process and the importance of it all.
That's great, Michelle. That's great. And no, it's fantastic, the initiative with Clúid. And I know, Michelle, when the funding application was successful, I think you were a bit like, be careful what you wish for, because it's a massive project, but it's fantastic. And it speaks to kind of the impact, the positive impact of the project. But just a couple of things, Michelle, I was thinking, you mentioned there about voter turnout, and people probably know voter turnout, you know, the way like in the North Inner City where we are was 34% in the local elections. But voter turnout is calculated by who is registered to vote. Now, there's a big issue, just to make that point. The Electoral Commission, we do a bit of work with, they have to clean up the register. There's a lot of replication. People might have moved out of the area. People could have passed away. So that kind of skews the figures. But just to say as well, maybe people know this or don't know this, that potential candidates, when they go to canvass an area, they can see which areas are registered or which are not. So they just say, okay, that group of houses there don't register or vote, I won't bother. So even that, people now, they should represent everyone in their constituency, not even just people who are registered or who vote. But there's an awful lot of people who are not represented, but also the candidates don't know who their constituency people are. So they're in the council chamber, in the DALC, making policies about their area, and they don't actually know who the makeup of the people are in the area. But I agree about the qualitative, like, anyway, that's kind of the numbers. Is it making a difference in the bigger sense? But we can say that there's lots of sort of lights at the end of the tunnel. Michelle mentioned some of the qualitative there. I also wanted to share, I worked with a group in the National Learning Network in Wicklow, and one girl was a wheelchair user, and after doing the course, she was emailing the local councillor about services, footpaths and everything in the area. So I remember I was driving back to Dublin going, future activists there. You know, the way we think other people, you have to be qualified or whatever to be a politician, but I thought she was so impressive, you know. And also just to bring it back to literacy and the kind of education space, one of our students here, she said before she would just it would just go over her head. But then she said, I was watching prime time and I was kind of listening and saying, oh, they're talking about policies, they're talking about, before it was like that process of engagement. All of a sudden she was thinking, oh, okay, I'm actually taking in what people are saying, you know, after doing the course. But yeah, so I mean, I have a couple of slides, Michelle, or photographs. Will I show them from the project? It might bring the thing like, will I? And yeah, so okay, and it includes you ended up going to the DALC as well, didn't you? So can everyone see the screen there? Yeah, so there are some photographs in general from the project. So that's one of the groups we worked with. You can see at the top there, that's a group in Dublin 1 here, Hill Street Family Resource Centre. A lot of people in that group voted for the first time because they were from new communities. And actually we on the day of the election in June, we did a little sort of whistle-stop tour. We went to all the polling stations and actually everyone gave a big clap when people went in to vote. So we were outside going, woo, you know, because it's a secret ballot. This group down here is DALC. You see it's very discussion-based, very participative. And here it's just a bumper sticker. So we got people to come up with a message, like a bumper sticker in the back of your car, why people should vote. I like this one here, overthrow the status quo, vote, honk if you voted. So, you know, they seem kind of lighthearted, but at the same time, this stuff can be heavy. So it kind of engages people, you know. Now, let me see, the screen is not moving, hang on. So I have some of the pictures here from the group in Balmain. Let me see. Okay. Oh, just share again. Can everyone see? Yeah, so this is one group. They part of the course is looking through newspaper cuttings. We call it the wall of issues. So people, it's a kind of a gentle way of thinking about issues. So I think people there, it's housing, mental health, vaping, so on, government checks. So one of the things is we ask people, okay, you have 50 million, what are you going to spend it on? What issue? So that's one other group here that we worked with before, the Women's Collective Mullingar. So this is your group here, Michelle. So I don't know if you want to talk from the photographs there.
Yeah, so that's basically our poster. We changed the name of it, Make Your Voice Heard, so your community gets what it deserves. And that's me showing someone the ballot paper and then, you know, going through the importance of your preference votes.
Okay. And this one here, oh yeah, that's your wall of issues, is it? And
yeah, wall of issues. So what issues are important to you? So we had newspaper clippings and we asked them just to pick out 2 or 3 that was important to them, and then we put them all up on the wall and everyone had a chance to discuss then why they picked these certain issues, and then just put post-its up of, you know, why vote, and they gave different reasons of why to vote for. One of them there says you can make a difference. I can't really read it. But it's different reasons to vote there, so and why it's important.
And I like the wall of issues because it kind of it's the issues for that particular group. So depending on, like, if you're working with a group of young men, it might be different to sort of older women or whatever. So it kind of shows what's important to that particular group. And this is the DALC visit.
Yeah, that was really good actually. They really enjoyed that. We done that on the last day, and we got to do the tour of the DALC, and then we went in and we got questions and answers. Now, one of our local TDs done the questions and answers, but Fiona has a contact in there now that can keep it completely party neutral. There's someone that works in there that will do a questions and answers if we want to run it again, and for other groups that want to run it again. But even the little trip around the DALC is really interesting, and we went for lunch after, so we discussed then what we thought of the course, and we got the feedback then over lunch. So it was really nice, like, you know, and I suppose to not make it too kind of learning heavy, it made it a little bit light, and it was a day out kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, brilliant. And I know, thanks, Michelle, that it's the education officer in the DALC, if anyone wants contacts, because a lot of what we're doing is sharing contacts, but he will give people the tour, you know, which is great. And also, I know, like in DALC here, we brought our literacy group to the DALC, and it was great. I remember one man saying, I didn't think this place was for us. And I'm, you know, I thought, well, who is it for? If it's not for, you know, interesting. So isn't it interesting? And I know they actually have a room in the DALC near, you know, the committee rooms where they debate. And they said that we could use it any time. And I was thinking it would be fantastic to get a group in there to do kind of like literacy champions or literacy ambassadors, but to do it kind of literally from the inside, you know, inside the government would be great, you know. So I think, yeah, so I think that's us, that we've shared a lot from our project. So if anyone has any questions maybe or anything.
Thank you so much, Fiona and Michelle. That was brilliant. And I think, like you said, I think all of us are get caught between qualitative and quantitative. You know, I think most of us really want the good stuff, and the funders want the numbers, so we do that too.
I was just gonna say, yeah.
But that it's so, you know, it's so impressive, Michelle, just to hear about people, particularly like, and I love that you're so, you know, so many community groups are, you're so blasé. Like getting 13 people to a voter education group for the first time is actually massive. Like you could have had two, you know what I mean? That's a big deal. But also to have people like, for you know, a parent of a child with additional needs, to feel the confidence and the knowledge to know who to address what they need for themselves and their family, and to do it successfully is extraordinary, really. Like, you know, and those impacts they're so important, and we don't often get the space to share them. Do you know, that way it's hard to get that all into a report or whatever way you have to feed things up. So thank you so much for both of you. If anybody does have any questions, please feel comfortable to hop on the mic and ask the questions, or if you'd like to write the question in the chat box, please do.
There's a question here for Fiona.
Brilliant,
from,
yeah.
Aoife Gaffney. Fiona, where can I find the data on voter turnout? That's from Aoife Gaffney.
Oh yeah, hi Aoife. I know Aoife. Yeah, the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission now, they're scrambling to update their site, but I could email you about that, Aoife, if you like, and maybe share it as well. But the Electoral Commission would have it.
Great, thanks. They have been actually very useful in answering questions, and quite kind of specific questions that you know, that have come up. So they have been quite useful. But the group that I'm working with at the moment, just they really want to know what the turnout in their constituency is, and I didn't know where to find that.
Yeah, no, they do. They should have it up on their site, Aoife, but I'll check. I know that the media, the national newspapers, and the council websites as well are also good. But after the local elections, that was all logged on.
Right, I might have been looking in the wrong places. I'll have a look.
Yeah.
I suppose I just have a question. Maybe I'll just take this opportunity. If no one else does, I'll do them. Just I suppose for both, maybe Ishka, if you guys want to speak first, just thinking about what were some of the challenges, you know. You both said, I think, Niall, you said, like, it is easy to do a video in some regards, like, you know, it's not rocket science, and most community and voluntary groups and organizations, they can do this stuff, you know. It's not a hugely expensive or things like that, but I suppose it's obviously challenging, you know. What did you, I suppose, think were some of the challenges supporting people within something like the Citizens Assembly, or, you know, ensuring that people could participate in the way they felt comfortable?
How are you, Dave? I think the first thing is that actually creating these spaces is so uncommon. We don't fund and resource actually proper community-led, people-led spaces. We're very much centered around, developing initiatives and programs that we deliver into people's heads. We have to create spaces for people to explore the issue through their own living experience. And it has to be done on an ongoing basis. And then in regards to the Citizens Assembly, like, we normally have to push and fight to get every bit of space that we can to create the access. And then the challenge a lot of the time is we'll always be really good at keeping people engaged, but over time, again, with the political system or even in local politics, even some of the stuff that Michelle and Fiona have highlighted, over time, if people don't feel that their input has resulted in impacts on the ground, we can lose people, especially people who are people who don't, who are marginalized. They don't have a lot of time. That they have a lot of jobs to be doing. They have a lot of work. There's a lot of pressures. So people are willing to engage in a system, but people quite quickly, if their experience is that the system hasn't listened to, or that there hasn't been any result in their impacts, it's very hard to expect people to continuously engage in that. So for us, it's very much around keeping about the issues, and even saying it's not just around the big stuff. Make an impact locally, make an impact in a service, make an impact in your life, in your community, and trying to capture those wins. But there's a lot of challenges for people to force to get engaged, to continue to be engaged, and then influence decision making. There's a process there which we'll implement, and Michelle has spoken about. But how well or how much it influences is always a debate to be had,
Yeah, thanks for that. Absolutely. And I see, even Michelle, the way you changed, the name of the voter education, or you use language that you thought would reach people in your area. Like, that's really important, isn't it? To tweak things and make sure people see themselves in it, I suppose for you, Michelle, what were some of the challenges? Maybe even getting people involved or running the program, keeping people engaged.
I suppose even just getting people to do the course, but I put in a couple of favors to get them taught in on as well. But even to just get people engaged, you know what I mean? So it is difficult to get people engaged. That's why we highlighted what we done on social media as well. And even though people aren't coming forward, it doesn't mean that they're not taking it on board. Just talking to the fella from the Electoral Commission, they're really interested in the work that we're doing. And he was able to get more stats than what I have now. I'm going to be working with him and I'll look at that side of things. But even just from talking to him, he was able to say, oh, this is really interesting, the late registration in Balmain after we had done our social inclusion voting campaign, over 300 registered to vote. Late registrations. So that can have a huge impact on a community. You know what I mean? And if people, even if they're not actively getting engaged in the program, say, they're looking at what we're putting up on social media, they have the canvassers knocking on their doors, they have that opportunity to speak to them directly. Whereas that wouldn't have been happening before. Like Fiona had said, canvassers actually get a printout of who's registered and who's not. They're knocking on doors that people have already registered. Do you know what I mean? They're not going through the hassle of trying to get more. Well, some are. I shouldn't say that. But do you know what I mean? Like they're so under pressure as well, and they need to get their votes. So they are going to be concentrating on areas that, have high voter turnout already and have people registered to vote already. So I think this piece is really important, but it is difficult trying to get it. Like even this time around, now we've done it before the local elections, and we're trying to run it again before the general elections. And I've organised a coffee morning, a register to vote coffee morning. The canvassers will have access to the blocks this weekend. And then we're running the voter education programme starting on the 6th. But I've only got 4 registered so far. So and if I don't get a few more in the next few days, I'll be going knocking on doors myself, But look, we'll see. All we can do is try. We'll still highlight what we're doing, and hopefully it will have an impact then on the wider community as well. And just what about the impact and the results as well. It is important that people see that. So we have had results in Balmain, like, you know, the roads are, one of the roads are taken in charge. We have commitment from Dublin City Council to take the other main roads in charge. We're getting a new playground. We have commitment from Dublin City Council for that, and we are in talks about community facilities. Now, them talks are going on a long time, but I think with the engagement in the area with our elected representatives, they're all going in saying the same thing. Do you know what I mean? So that is having an impact, and it's getting it on the agenda constantly. And I've had, you know, the Richard Shakespeare, the CEO of Dublin City Council, out to meetings at this stage, you know. So we're working with the senior management team in Dublin City Council to get resources in the area, and things are really moving much more than what they did kind of 10 years ago when we weren't doing all this work, you know, that type of way. So
yeah, no, that's extraordinary, and I think it's really important, like you're saying, that multiplier effect. It's not actually just the people in the room and doing the program who are influenced, their families, their communities, then obviously people who benefit from things they advocate for, but even the small things, like you say, when you're doing outreach to recruit people to do the program, you're still putting things in people's heads, and maybe somebody that heard about the last time the program ran will eventually go, do you know what, I'll give it a try. I heard how it went the first time. Somebody else tested it for me, and I actually know I can go now, you know. So it does take a while. And I think, like you were saying, Andy, as well, like it is nice to have some impact early, even if it's a small local things, because it does, like you said, Niall and Dan, the feeling that you're actually influencing politicians and policymakers, it's a good feeling. And, you know, especially no doubt if it hasn't been something you felt listened to before. So if you can get people have a bit of that feeling and then keep the momentum going. But it, you know, and obviously people have little stressful lives. There's a lot going on to keep people engaged, but we have had a run of elections. It's been mad, you know. So it's an opportunity, I suppose, in the last 18 months to kind of talk about this stuff a bit more.
Yeah. And I just wanted to echo what Michelle said about the challenges of engaging people, but I suppose the success of Michelle's initiative in Balmain is the relationship, like you, because you are local to the area and you had a good relationship with people. A lot of it is that, isn't it? Kind of engaging people. And I thought, I agree with what Andy said about there isn't enough spaces for this to happen. Like, it's one thing in the ballot box, but we should be creating spaces where people can come together to discuss issues and to discuss policy. And often, exactly, we're all scrambling to do this year, but actually we should be doing it in between. That came up, actually. A lot of people are saying, oh, they all come to the door now, you never see them, you know. And it is a bit much, isn't it, that people knock every 5 years to your door, but they should be interacting, or we as voters should be interacting with our local representatives in between elections, you know.
It was something that actually came up for us when we were making the videos for the Citizen, because when they said they called that they were going to have the Citizen Assembly on drug use early last year, and then quite quickly there was a process and they were setting up weekends, and we were saying to them, look, you haven't set up any clear time frame or process by how people will engage us. We were kind of just lucky that that's kind of what we do. But otherwise, what was happening, they were just plucking people with lived experience and expecting them to get up there, as you said, Fiona. You have to have ongoing processes where people are exploring this all of the time. A lot of the time we set up a structure, and we look around for people who are marginalised to just go and be in it. And it's tokenistic, and it lacks credibility. And sometimes it can actually cause harm, you know.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with that. It feels tokenistic, and it's a bit of a box ticking exercise. Oh, we have talked to people, but it should be all the time, you know?
Yeah. And in ways that suit the people, you know. I think that's the thing, because there's, in fairness, in the last 15 years, is that no end to the consultation processes that the government engage with. But like, it's posted on the Government of Ireland website, and sometimes there's a form, sometimes you submit something by email, but it's not very engaging. Do you know what I mean? So it's that too, you know, allowing submissions in different ways.
I totally agree. Yeah. And even in the council, they do public consultation. Oh, we ask people, but there's a form that you nearly need to be like qualified architect or something to fill it in. A housing policy, great. And if you have a literacy issue, You joking?
Yeah, no, it's crazy stuff. So thanks so much to all. Sorry, Niall, did you want to come in there?
I just think the work that we do, because we do outreach, we do groups, we have boots on the ground. So we're really engaged with the people that matter, that want their voices to be heard, you know? So I think making safe spaces for them people to explore, you know, what could be done, because they are the experts. So yeah, that's just
absolutely. And like you were both all saying, it takes years for people who have been so like neglected and excluded for so long to get comfortable to go in and out of those spaces and get the support from yourselves. So, you know, again, you know, we won't promote any party. We're not in that game, but we definitely promote funding for community development projects. You know, so politicians will be canvassing. So even the idea, no matter what issue we're talking about or where you stand the political spectrum, you know, ensuring that there is funding for organizations that are doing this type of work day in, day out is really important. And it's very easily slips from the agenda, unfortunately. So I think I can safely promote that without, I'm not promoting any political party, of course. Is anybody have any final words before we finish up? Any of our speakers want to say any last? Do you want to plug anything? Promote anything?
Can I just say, you know, well done to Andy and the lads there, and it's absolutely phenomenal work that you are doing. That video was so powerful, like it was amazing. And I think anybody that participated in that video are really, really brave. So well done.